Alright, I don't know exactly how this is going to play, but we're going to try it. Okay, so what we're going to be doing today. I've got a computer here. I've got a computer chassis. And here it is. This thing is pretty darn giant. This is about as big of a computer chassis as I would care to use. Let me see if I can get you guys a little bit better look at this thing. Alright, so what we got here, let me turn some light on too. Alright, so this chassis, this is a Cooler Master big honking chassis that I got from a friend of mine. He didn't want it anymore. It does have a DVD player built in. He doesn't remember if it works or not. It also has a couple of these quick disconnect hard drive enclosures. I don't know if those things work or not either. We're going to play around with those and find out. Anyway, as you can see, we got a couple front USBs here. You know, the usual audio connectors. This thing has some auxiliary fans, at least one here, and then it's got a giant fan on top. I've actually never seen a fan quite that large on a computer chassis. You can see that thing right there. It's like 7 or 8 inches across. Okay, so anyway, what we're going to be doing today, this chassis doesn't have power supply in it. So I guess the title of today's exercise is going to be power supply installation. Now the way this thing is set up, it has on the back side, it has a connector for a power supply, and this thing has screws that come off, and then this whole unit, or this back piece comes off, and then the power supply fits right in here. And we have a power supply. I wish I had a little bit more room here to work, but I don't, so we'll just have to make do. We'll just use my chair here as a place that I can put my chassis for right this second. Okay, so here's my brand new power supply. Comes in handy over and over again. Alright, so now then, we got this power supply. This is a 600 watt power supply that I bought for not much money. But it should do everything we need it to. Because what I'm planning to do with this machine is make it into somewhat of a gaming rig that I'm going to give to my son. Because the other day he was talking about wanting a computer, and I thought, well shoot, if you need a computer, you came to the right place, my friend. I can just build you one. Alright, so cable management. As you may or may not know, cable management's one of my weaknesses. Okay, so we're just going to have a jumble of cable. Alright, so it looks like with this power supply, I have, okay, what is this right here? Is that my CPU power? Looks like it. Okay, so this appears to be my CPU power. And then I've got power here for 1, 2, 3 Molex devices. And I've also got a Bergman connector just in case I have a floppy disk I need to connect. A standard 24-pin ATX. And then I've got my SATA power here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, I'm sorry, 4, and then another Molex. Okay, so I've got space here to attach, looks like 4 SATA devices, which is plenty for our purposes. We're not going to have that many. Alright, now first things first. I want to test this power supply and just make sure that it's running like it's supposed to. And I know it's brand new. You just saw me open it. Is it possible it could be broken? Yeah, it is. Not likely, but possible. So what we're going to do, let me show you this thing right here. This is a device that'll tell us if this power supply is doing what we want it to do. So give me just a second to get set up here, and then we'll examine this. Okay, so now I've got my power supply plugged into the wall, and I'm going to connect. Now these connections, you can't mess them up. They only plug in one way. So if you start plugging in the CPU connector to the PCIe connector, then it won't let you. It won't fit. I mean, you know, of course, you're probably thinking, oh, I can make it fit. Yeah, you could. You know, with the help of a large hammer, anything can become possible. But I'm talking about, you know, trying to get this thing plugged in such a way that we don't damage anything. So we'll plug in our ATX, big old connector right there we go. Alright, and as you guys may or may not remember from our previous experimentation, it is really difficult to connect SATA and Molex at the same time on one of these boxes, simply because the connections are in such close proximity. But if you're careful, sometimes you can do it and make it work. Alright, so I think I've got everything plugged in correctly. So now that we do, let's take a look and see how we did. Okay, now we've got blue light here. That's a good thing. And we've got indicators across the bottom. Oh, my PCIe is loose. Okay, just push it back in there. Okay, across the bottom we've got indicators that tell us which connectors we have plugged in. First thing we're going to check is our 24-pin connection. Okay, 24-pin connection's good. Okay, 5 volt, 12 volt, 3.3 volt, all looking nice. Okay. Down here, this PG, shoot, I can't remember what that PG stands for. But basically what this is like a signal that goes from the motherboard to the power supply to tell it to turn on and off. It's like a status signal. Okay, and then the next thing we're going to look at is our PCIe connector, 12 volts, yay. Okay, CPU power, 12 volts. Okay, Molex, 5 and 12, perfect. SATA, uh-oh, what's up with my SATA? It may just not be plugged in all the way. Okay, well it looks like I got a failure on the 3.3 volt SATA. Well, that's no bueno. It was working fine to start with. Okay, let's try a different SATA connector. And get it to plug on. Okay. All right, let's measure our SATA again. PCI, CPU. All right, so my SATA is not giving me no love. So I've got to figure out what's going on with this thing, because it should be blue and it shouldn't be beeping like that. Okay, so I went and got a different meter, different power supply tester, and I plugged in the SATA connector, and it's given me 5 volts, 12 volts, and then a failure on the 3.3 volt. So it looks like this power supply is bad right out of the box, unfortunately, and so yeah, just going to have to send it back and get a replacement. Alright, well, just because the power supply is bad doesn't mean we can't still demonstrate installation of the power supply. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm just going to take these little screws off. Okay. And on this particular case, we have this, this back piece here. Okay, and my power supply. What did I do with it? Here it is. Alright, just going to put all those wires down into the chassis. I told you wire management was not exactly my specialty. Now, a couple different ways you can go with this power supply. You can either install it right side up, it just kind of slides right in there, or you can install it upside down and let it vent out through the bottom of the chassis here. So we can do that if we wish. Okay, so that's up to you. Now what I'm going to do is, because I'm just such a traditionalist, I'm going to install this thing right side up, just like this. I'm going to press that a little bit in order to get it to fit, but ultimately it should just slide right in there. Okay, and then I've got this piece here that will go over the back. Okay, so I've taken this piece off, and what I'm going to do now is remove this lid. It's got the fan attached to it. Take that guy off of there. Okay, so apparently with this particular chassis, you're going to install this power supply upside down whether you like it or not. So here it goes. That was the only way that I could get it to fit in there, was by turning it upside down. Now, the power supply is a solid state device except for the fan, so being upside down should not be an issue. So yeah, now we just have to put these screws in place so that our power supply is not sliding around, and then we should be good for to proceed on with the next part of our installation. Okay, so now that I've installed this little frame that goes around, it just is held on by 4 screws. Okay, so I've got this little framework installed here. Now I can secure the power supply to the chassis with just these little finger screws. Okay, for somebody with smaller fingers than me, this is probably way easier. I'm just going to cheat and use a screwdriver. And I'm not going to tighten these things up so much that I can't easily take them back out, because as we saw earlier, this power supply has got some SATA connectors that might be questionable. And so now for this particular build, I may just use this power supply anyway, because I'm not planning on installing any SATA drives. The only SATA drive that I might use is the DVD drive in front there that was already included with the chassis, but I may not even connect it. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. Okay, so there's my power supply installed, and I've got my cables running back through this cable channel area here, and then once I install my motherboard, then I'll be able to bring the cables out through this access area here. The side plate goes on here, so I'll bring my cables up, and I'll only use the ones that I need. Of course I'll need my 24 pin to connect the motherboard, but some of these other power connectors, my CPU I'll need, PCIe I'll need, but I could conceivably just wind up leaving everything else back here in this channel. We'll just have to wait and see how it goes. Alright, so thanks very much for watching my little power supply video, and I'll see you in the next video when we install the motherboard.